Every year we want to do something that's very tactile, very hands-on, takes a deep, in-depth look at a sector of the industry that you wouldn't see at a normal conference or a normal event. I've been in the industry a long time. I still have a ton to learn about wool, and I had wool sheep for a while. There's so much that we don't know, and so we want to dive into these things and look at them from a new lens. And so Pablo is an expert on wool production, and the stuff that Obis 21 is doing is just mind-blowing. So I'm going to pass it over to him, and I will get your slides going here.
It's a bit hard after Tres work. I'm going to take you down from spiritual inspiration to a woolly thing. I don't know what it is. And what happens is that there was meant to be a wool demonstration, and thanks to some logistic problem, it will be more like a wool story. But we have something to show anyway. So, and we were going to present this with Christine Ford from Woolful Company, and she's not going to make it, so we will have her at the hall after this conference, and she will be able to show you some very special stuff that she's producing. So I would like to ask you first, what does wool mean to you? Something like that? Did you start to scratch? A market study from 2000 said that Americans are particularly against wool because they feel like it's itchy. It's an itchy thing. So that's why merino wool started to be branded separate, because before that we had wool as a fiber, and there are some fibers that really itch. So maybe you think about something old-fashioned, something old, the old ladies, or out of date, kind of that. Or what happened to me is that if you ask me this, probably when I began to work on Patagonian grasslands in the 80s, my idea of wool was this. This is coming to life. So for me, sheep production was the cause of these landscapes, terribly degraded. And so I grew up between wool growers, but I always had thought that sheep production and wool production was in the roots of this problem that affects Patagonia in a big extent. For an example, Patagonia has 60 million hectares, and official estimates say that we have 80% of that severely degraded. So imagine how many millions of hectares. But that's true, but it could be the opposite. And wool can be soft as cashmere for 1/10 of the cost. Could be a sophisticated technical fiber, something that you can use for extreme sports with advantage over other fibers. And there's something that still can go to fashion. And what we have put our focus on, wool can be a grassland regeneration driver. And that's the story I want to tell you now. So let me introduce you to our group. This is the story of a group of farmers and professionals that decided to build a collaborative network in 2003. So we have 12 years of working together, and it's a community of practice and action, a collaborative network, and based on innovation. So innovation and quality standards are the things that are amalgamating all these people together to working in sharing information. A few years ago, we proudly joined the Savory network. We started working with holistic management in 2008. Our first workshop was with Jim Howell in 2007. In 2008, we had the first farm, and we have been lucky to have Brian Marshall as our mentor in South America. He came for 4 years to train a basic group of very young, committed people. And also we, as a company, Obis 21 is a B Corp in terms of we want to be the change. We don't want to talk about the change. We want to be the change, as Gandhi said. So when you think about us, think about a network of people working. This is Patagonia. The length of that is more than 2,000 kilometers. And this is about 160 farms. They're doing some kind of stuff with us. And 57 of them are certified under our standards. And our mission is to promote a grassland regeneration culture to sustain people, their business, and their communities. So when you think about Obis 21, think about people learning, people talking to each other, sharing information, working together, amalgamating their products and branding their products together. And the amazing thing is that we introduced 8 of the 10 innovations, most important innovations in Patagonia, in sheep breeding, in the last decade, came from Obis 21. 8 out of 10. So it's people learning, that's it. And we are branding our products and supplying to local companies in Argentina. And we have been supplying to Patagonia, the company. And this is what they said. Someone wants to read that. We have worked hard to be sustainable and to do the least harm. This is the first time we can do good by placing business here. We have been supplying Stella McCartney. And we are in contact with the Kering Group, which holds 23 companies in Europe. And this is what they're saying. And we are supplying Woolfolk, which is the company that's was going to share this space with us. They produce hand-knitting wool with our top wool that's called Ultimate Merino. And we have been part of the Responsible Wool Standard, which is a new industry standard under development now. Here in the room is Bill Parker. Bill, would you stand up? We owe a lot to this man. He's our man in USA. And he's been participating of the Responsible Wool Standard Commission as my partner Richard Fenton and myself. So this is an ongoing process to have a global standard for textiles. So this is what we do. And the question could be, well, you're talking about regenerative wool or sustainable wool. And how can you tell that? You know, there's a lot of terms, and the word sustainable, it's overused, and maybe you cannot separate things from greenwashing if you don't have some serious stuff. So what we think is that at least to prove you are sustainable or you are regenerative, whatever term you want to do, you need a standard that is based on environmental outcomes. And you need traceability, of course, and a chain of custody to ensure that what the consumer gets comes from the right farms and this is not mixed with someone else. So we developed a standard that's called GRASS, the acronym of Grassland Regeneration and Sustainable Standard, together with the Nature Conservancy. And what is new with this standard? Well, it is an adaptive management cycle. That means farmers need to evaluate grasslands, need to plan, need to monitor, and need to replan. They need to change if things are going wrong. The other thing is it's focused on environmental outcomes. What does it mean? That many standards that you know are focused on activities. You know, you need to do this, you need to prove that you did this, but nobody's seeing what happens with the land. We look mainly what happens with the land and also ask for some activities, but we're not focused on activities. And we are creating a shared database, and we have a scientific committee to validate and to learn from what we are getting from the farms. And holistic management as a framework is our main regenerative tool, as you will see. So the standard says openly that the planning procedure recommended is holistic management. So, sorry, don't get missed with this, but this is the kind of diagram of the quality assurance, so you can understand, I hope, what do we mean by a quality assurance system. And so in the box, you see grassland evaluation, grazing planning, execution, and monitoring. Well, that's the on-farm activities that the farmer needs to accomplish, that we verify before we certify a farm under GRAS standards. They need to do that cycle. That is the basic cycle of an adaptive management. But before we get to work on the farms, we have some procedures. You see the blue ones are performed by the TNC and the scientific committee, and that's a planning procedure at the level of ecological area, which focuses on conservation targets, wildlife issues, on a broad picture. So that creates some recommendations, some strategies for farmers which are in the same ecological area. Just if you are in this area, watch, this is a conservation target, and this is what you need to do in your grazing plan. When you plan for your farm, please remember this. This species needs this for nesting or something like that. So you need to define the standard, and the standard is tailor-made for each region. So it has a bone, but you can adapt it to any context. And then you need to have people trained to do all the stuff over there. So the green ones are the OBIS 21 functions. This is our role. We train and accredit farmers and professionals. So we have independent professionals that we train and accredit that can help the farmers to do those procedures. So we have 13 field professionals accredited by a Savory Institute that go to the farmers to help the farmers to do the planning. And we have some people that go and help with the grassland checks, especially with the monitoring when it's botanical composition or some things that are hard to do by a farmer. So once you get the previous activities ready, then you can start working with the farms. And then we have the land audit. We go to the farms with a yearly plan and see what is happening there. And what do we look? If they have all the papers? No, what we look, how's the land looking? And we do, half of the audits are selected on purpose. If I see in the database someone that has achieved a very high score in rangeland health, I want to know if he's cheating us or I want to know if he has done such a good job, we need to learn from him. And of course, if we see someone that is not performing, we want to do an audit to see if we can help him. So that's something important. You have a land audit, and we have a certification, which is we give to each farm that complies with that a certificate that allows him to get into the marketing and the branding process. And we have the scientific committee that performs validation. What is, we claim that when we do these things, land regenerates. But is someone here to come and say, yes, I saw this, or this is not what you say, or whatever? So we have an independent auditing. And we needed a common language to be able to rank the ecological status of the farms. So we developed what we call Rangeland Health Index, which is based on the rangeland health work that the Bureau of Land Management did and some other publications. And of course, it uses biological indicators that most of them come from Alan's work. So when a farm, and we have reference areas for each ecological area, which are reference areas are what you would put in your future resource base. It's the best expression of that environment in terms of biodiversity, in terms of ground cover, in terms of ecosystem function, and community dynamics. And so we looked for reference areas, and we made a scorecard. So a very low score of the farm means that degradation processes are more important than regeneration. So if you have a farm that has a negative score, that means that degradation is accelerated and is occurring now. It's not something that Grandpa did, and I'm just managing it. And if you have scores, high scores, and we have little departure from the reference area, we think that the farm is performing well. Normally, in this case, most of the, this is the example. When you are in the, well, to go back. When you are in this region, when you walk on the land, you see a grassland that is thriving, that is good. Of course, it's not the same to have 20 points than 80, but we put a line around 15 points. After 15 points, you see the land more or less fine. So when a farm has a score, an average score of 15, we call them a full farm. And when the farm has less than 15 points, we call it a restore farm. What does it mean? The farm has not their land in good shape, so they need to have a plan for that. They need to get out of that. And that's what how we work with them. So we have a full disclosure of the ecological status. All this, we can generate indicators for each ecosystem process using the indicators in some way. So this is a total score, but we can have partial scores for water cycle or for nutrient cycle or whatever, or that community dynamics. So we will go to see what happens with ecosystem processes, and we have a score. Each farm has, each year we have this score. So to give you a visual image, this grassland on the right should have a positive score and should be rated as a full farm. The other one is, you see, is getting an invasion of exotic species, and the grasses are very low vigor, and they are not very good. This will be the Magellan Steppe, close to the Magellan Straits. And this is close to the Andes, or a place where I live. And again, you see the high, intense erosion on the left. That will be a big minus. It will be a minus 50 or minus 60. So when you have a minus 60, you have clearly defined that you are far from what is the potential of that place, and you need to do something. And of course, what we ask them to do is to plan their grazings holistically. And this is a meadow, just an example of how they look. And this scene of this meadow was holistically managed. So what we can learn from this database, I want to share this data for you because we think that it's very important. We, last season, we certified 57 properties between Argentina and Chile. And that's 1.3 million hectares. That's more than 2.8 million acres. And you see, we got just 1/4 of farms that ranked as full. So they got more than 15 points average. This is the average of readings in every paddock, several readings for every paddock. And 3/4 are in the restore category. And that coincides with the estimates from the government that say 80%. Our farmers are more progressive, so I think that this is a biased sample of what happens in Patagonia. Patagonia is worse than this. Our farmers are better than the average. But when you go and see which are the guys that have a full class, and what are they doing? That's a way to learn, isn't it? Who got the good qualification and what he was doing? Well, for 16 farms, and that's 0.7 million acres, most of them were holistic management practitioners. And we had, this is 4 farms that were doing what we call basic planning, will be an old-fashioned stocking rate adjustment. All these farms were applying very low stocking rates at a loss of money, and they were all located in southern Patagonia, in the less brittle part of Patagonia. When you go to the more brittle Patagonia, which is dominant, maybe 80% of the area, we have 41 farms 41 farms in this class. We couldn't find a full adjusting stocking rates. I think this is a strong evidence of what Alan says about the need of proper grazing practices in brittle environments. It's our data is total confirmation of that. The other thing is that some of these full that were applying basic planning and some of the holistic management farms, probably they were full before we started certifying. So we said, well, which was the management of the people that changed from from restored to full in the last 3 years? Because that's the movement, that's the change, the rate change, the regeneration rate. And so we got 7 farms that changed from restored to full in the last 3 years. So that came from very bad to not that bad, just getting into the 15 to 25 points. Nobody did it without holistic management. How does it like? That's 326 acres change it category just by planning their grazings. And so we have recorded grassland regeneration through holistic management, better decision making, while increasing stocking rates in every of these farms, while improving the business of the farmer and keeping people on the land. I must tell you that in Patagonia, 90% of the farms are small or medium size. Sometimes we have the idea of the big estancia, the wealthy people that have a huge chunk of land. But those, although they're important, they do not represent the majority of the farmers or the majority of the land. So for these people, it's highly important what we are achieving. So coming back to wool, the main countries that are producing and exporting wool are Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, Uruguay. China and India are just net importers of wool. They don't export. The value chain is complex. It's one of the most complex value chains that you have. It may take 7 to 30 months from the sheep to the retail. Very long, and too many people, and it's a segmented value chain, so people don't talk to each other. So it's very hard to get with traceability to the last point. But, well, you have shearing, of course. You need wool testing, transport the wool, the scoring, combing at top making, spinner to make the yarn, and you need to weave it, to cut and sew, brand it, and retail. Long, long chain. A lot of people working on it. Shearing is important. It's the moment you need to get the wool. And there are management practices that allow you to do it properly. We use snow combs that leave more wool on the skin of the animal, or blades to leave more wool on the skin of the animal to reduce the stress after shearing, cold stress after shearing. The top making is the first part of the industrial process. They wash the wool and they comb it to align the fibers, and you will see top. The final product of this is at the top. Something about wool. Well, the wool fiber is much finer than, this is a human hair, you know. Wool has scales, and chemically it's keratin. It's the same that your hair, or the same of your nails. It's the same protein. But wool has air in it, so its insulation capabilities are much more. I don't know if this is, but what is real is that wool is a very complex fiber. It's designed by nature for millennia to isolate the animal from extreme weather, say it cold or heat, and has not been replaced by any synthetic fiber in terms of performance. Has been beaten in terms of maybe resistance or easy care. But if you need to climb a mountain and you need to have a fur skin, you will not replace wool very easily. So this is wool is a natural insulation, even if it's wet. It's breathable. It's comfortable even if it's cool or warm. Remember that the Tuaregs and the people in Africa made their tents of wool to protect from heat, not from cold. And it's sun-safe, has UV protection. This is important for people that work on oil, for example, or electrical places. It's a fire retardant, doesn't have a flame when it's exposed to fire. And it's renewable and it's degradable. Compare the time that you need to degrade a piece of wool compared with the degradation of a synthetic polyester will be 100 times more. And no lesser important is that it's odor resistant. So if you go trekking for a long time, fishing, outdoor activities, well, it's nice to have something that doesn't stink. And the other ones also appreciate it, yeah? It's not something that you appreciate. It's your companions also appreciate it. So let's go a little bit to wool quality. What do you think of that picture? Shines, isn't it? Yeah, that wool shines. Yeah. And wool is a generic name, but wool could be very different from one to other. So it's good that let's have a little insight. If we go from low quality wool to high quality animal fiber, well, in the high end, what you will find? Cashmere, vicuña, could be baby alpaca, could be silk. All fibers, very expensive, coming from animals. And in the low quality, well, you have wool, which is a vast range between what is produced by meat breeds, which is very strong wool, very itchy wool, more than 30 micron wool. Then you have crossbreds, will be between 30 and 23. And then you have the Marinos. Marinos could be with different fineness. And of course, as finer it gets, when you get below 19 micron, wool becomes really soft. But what we are getting now is what we call ultimate merino, which is halfway. If you see it on a microscope, it's halfway between cashmere and wool. This is selection favoring softness. Selation favoring softness for a long period. You end with fleeces that are super soft, that resemble cashmere. It's not easy, but it can be done. Our farmers are doing it. And one of the tools is sheep genetics. We are working with a type of genetics of sheep we call multi-purpose merinos, coming from Victoria, from Australia. These merinos, we say that they serve to the whole, because these multi-purpose merinos have several attributes that are very important. They have a modern carcass conformation. They're easy care, they're rustic, they grow very fast, are very fertile, they don't have wrinkles, and they have a fleece that is composed of aligned fibers, not staples, not entangled fibers. So this is how they look like, and the combination of holistic management, holistic plant grazing, and this genetics has allowed us to duplicate the revenue of a farm in a timetable of 5 to 10 years. So we improved the business very quickly with this too. And you only get ultimate merino from advanced MPM sheep, not from any one. Time? No. 10. Oh, okay. And as with holistic management, you need to understand the biology behind it, the ecology behind it, to see the whole. You cannot understand wool if you don't understand the skin. The skin is the part, is the tissue of the animal that produces the wool. So here on the left, Can you see this? Each one is a follicle, a wool follicle. Can you see how they are arranged? They are totally in disorder, and there are few of them, so they are not aligned. Well, this will produce a type of wool. And if the fibers are, you have, in this case, 85 fibers per square millimeter, and they're aligned because they are too much high-density skin, this will produce ultimate merino. High density, very low, very small primary follicles, you get this very special wool. If you have the skin like this, the wool that will come from this is totally expectable. Will be entangled, more coarse, fibers will be elliptical, and it won't be as soft. So this is how it looks like. It's a fleece that, as the fibers grow so aligned, it doesn't form staples. So it doesn't challenge gravity. It fails because it doesn't have entanglement to resist gravity. See that? It can be easily opened and it doesn't come back. So if someone, raise your hand, who has opened a fleece? Okay. When you open a fleece, normally in a sheep with low density, the fleece, you leave your hands and the wool will close immediately because it's trying to stretch. In this case, you open and it doesn't come back because it's not entangled. That's skin biology principles. And this is a principle, works on alpacas, on every animal that has a fleece. So Woolfolk is a company from United States that is purchasing Ultimate Merino from us. And unfortunately, Christine Ford could not arrive here. So what I will do is to invite Bill Parker to talk about this.
I'm Bill Parker, and I'm based out of Portland, Oregon, and I came on board with Ovis 21 in 2009, and my job was to try to get the results, what was coming off the land, the fiber, into North American and global retailers. So I started cold calling, knocking on the door, pounding my head against the wall, and started landing a few accounts. I would go to the outdoor retailer shows in Utah, walk by booths. I'd have my presentation materials. I'd do a 45-second elevator speech. The funny thing was that I'd been in retail sales for a while, but I'd never talked about poop and pee and turning the calves or the animals, rototilling everything in, mimicking what the buffalo did on the American plains or the Guanacos down in Argentina. So anyways, in one of those trips, I met a woman at a store called NAU in Portland, Oregon, and she was a hand knitter. And she actually, this is what's called a wool top, and this is the 17.5 micron Ultimate Merino. So I can pass some of these around, if you can just want to spread those out. And you can see how soft and how lustrous. And what Kristen, and actually Kristen is going to be here, and she's bringing samples so you can see, and we'll have a table out back. So come by today and tomorrow. Great lady. So anyways, I went into the store after that recommendation from the lady from Now and met with Kristen, who was working with a different company. And she held that and said, if I was a cocaine addict, this would be crack. She was blown away. I mean, she's going, this is wool? I've never seen anything like this. She went to her company, Open to Buy is where, I'd like to buy. She wanted to buy 2 tons of this, turn it into yarn, ship it around the world. They said no. She quit the company and formed Woolfolk. That's how she was blown away. In all of this, a lot of people say wool is wool. It's not, but at the same time, this story sets it apart because of what's happening on the ground. I would be talking about RHI rangeland health index or indicator with a yarn knitter. And I mean, it's just, how does that line up? But it does, because you're able to prove that what is happening on the ground is working. She ordered 2 tons in October. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. It had to go up through Peru, be made into yarn, dyed, shipped to Portland. She did it all in her own warehouse. Had some sales meetings, went to some yarn shows, started selling in October, and it was gone by the end of November. The next year she came back and did 5 tons. This year she's on 10 tons. She sells globally, Australia, Japan, Europe, some in South America, and all over the United States in pretty high-end knitting yarn shops, and it's fairly expensive, but for the quality you're getting, you know, she says that's not an issue with people that knit. There's an interesting, apparently there's a website called Savory, and it's a Facebook for knitters. And what she said is that there's 4 million registered people that knit on this website, and in that there's, in the database, they talk about 12,000 different merino yarns. So she's got 12,000 to choose from, and the only one she picks is this Ultimate Merino. So that's pretty cool too. In a lot of the conversations that we've had with her and that she's having with the people that she's doing business with, the story of the grassland regeneration keeps coming up. Can we get to the website?
We're trying to.
Okay. So a couple other things real quick while we're trying to figure that out. Here's and we'll have these up on the table. This is a story that was in the Nature Conservancy magazine, I think 2 years ago, telling the story of the grassland regeneration in Novus 21. And can you hold this for?
Yep.
Here, I can. So we talked about Stella McCartney. Stella McCartney, Paul McCartney's daughter. These are some of the fabrics that they used coming from, I think it was fall of 14. So that's from the fall of 14 line. And then the Ultimate Merino, a lot of companies, Smart Wool Ibex Icebreaker, they will put theirs through a bleach. It's a Percocet wash system that gets rid of the scales so you don't shrink, and yet at the same time, it can be environmentally dangerous. Yes, it does. This right here is the Ultimate Merino that has not been treated. So I have a few samples, and sometimes they accidentally go in the laundry, and then I have to give them to nieces. But if they can wash, but if you don't dry them, they're phenomenal. And so this is some of the goods. This is Von and Dungen. That is the product that is made in South America and stays there. This is kind of funny. This is, you there yet? Are we out of time?
Out of time? Yeah.
Real quick story. I had been knocking on Patagonia's doors for 1.5 years. He and I, we're getting closer. Yvonne Chenard comes back from Patagonia and drops 4 of these on the buyer's desk. He had already had samples of these for me. And he goes, Todd called me up and said, Bill, are you the guy that does this? And we said yes, and then we went on from there. So, anyways, how much? 3. Are there any questions? In Virginia, it depends. It's all breed related. So, would you? Wool for sweaters, you can use 25, 26, 27 micron, 22 micron. If you don't, and so it's basically the breed. So, what are some of the breeds that are crossbred?
Yeah, Corriedales.
Corriedales. So I don't think there's much in the way of a merino presence on the East Coast. There's a cousin of the merino in the West. But I think those couple breeds that we just mentioned might help. No.
Una pregunta.
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, that can be anywhere. The garments can be anywhere from 17 to 19 micron, but it's all ultimate merino. It's not your normal type of wool.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, that question was, what was the micron level of the garments that are being passed around right now?
The question's about nanofibers.
Yeah, I suppose the question is, do you worry about competition coming out of left field that will destroy the whole business regenerative model? You know, I worry about it as I say the question, from nanofiber technology that could be better and competitive.
I think environmentally, you know, there's that whole thing about recycled polyester, and I think that was probably where a lot of that's coming from. It's still man-made, or it's going to be made, so environmentally it's not good. The other thing is the odor. Human-made yarns smell after you wear them for a day or two. You can go backpacking in these wool things and you'll be okay 4, 5, 6 days down the road. It's just a process. It's something that happens with the wool. Real quickly, here's a little high tech from Patagonia. So Pablo talked about air in the wool. They actually took the yarn and injected air into the yarn. So pass this around and feel the texture. So there's places for warm air to get trapped, making it even more of an insulator, and also wicking away sweat and water and that type of thing even more. Are we worried? I'm not, because I haven't seen it happen so far.
1 minute?
Okay. One more question.
Yeah. I know. The lady over there.
How much is Patagonia buying? Are they buying a lot?
They have purchased about. You want tons? What do you want to know?
Yeah.
Question is, how much is Patagonia buying?
In the past, it's ranged from 30 to 40 tons a year. It's the best way to say it. And they were probably our biggest. There's more possibly coming.
Yes.
Last one.
Are you selling meat as well?
Weight?
Meat.
Meat?
Are you selling meat as
Yes.
well?
I don't, but it is.
And so is that certified meat into the market?
If it came off a grass farm, it's grass certified for the meat. So real quickly,
Oh, okay.
I just want to show you the marketing that these guys did with this. So two fingers? One. So this is the Wool Folks website, and just going through it real quick, it talks about the sustainable practices, the land regeneration. I mean, right off the bat, it's not about fiber. It's about what we're doing on the ground. This is more about the science of the actual fiber and what's happening with the ultimate merino. And one of the main things she says, well, it's coming up, what you saw on those little samples that we sent out, is that it takes to dye much, much better than any other regular type of merino wool. So then, these are some of the fall 15 colors that she's going to be having. She'll probably have some samples of this. So there's 4 different types of yarn right there, all in one color. And then if you're a knitter, you know more about this than I don't knit, so I don't know exactly what she's doing. And then down here, they also have patterns for people to buy. I don't know if that will.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you guys.